Can you execute a textbook emergency stop out there on the road right now? Totally without warning, because that's generally how it happens. Maybe we should talk about that. Pilots have this joke, takeoff is optional, but landing is mandatory. It's kind of like driving. You don't actually have to pull away from the curb, but if you do, sooner or later, you've got to stop the car. And sometimes you have to do it like you mean it to avert a disaster. And yet, stopping the car in an emergency is not part of any regulatory licensing standard that I'm aware of. And your ability to do this proficiently is never actually tested. Seems crazy. I'm John Cadogan, the founder of autoexpert.com.au, the place where Australian new car buyers save thousands on their next new cars. Cars and driving are my thing, always have been. I've been a professional engineer and a journalist since just after the extinction of the dinosaurs. At least, that's how it feels first thing in the morning. I did a safe driving tips report a couple of weeks back aimed at staying safe on the roads over the festive season, and also a Nutfest Friday recently that went into, in part, emergency braking. I got a lot of feedback on both of those reports, so here's the full story on emergency braking and swerving, evasive action. It might just save your life. And of course, if you're teaching someone young to drive, it might be great for them to watch this report too. When you look at the last 3 decades of new cars, there's been a monumental evolution in the technology designed to aid and abet emergency braking and evasive manoeuvring, because that's clearly a problem out there on the road. But drivers simply have not had any upgrade in that time. We're teaching the same old crap. We've got parents who don't know how to slash the risk, teaching their kids to drive and passing on everything they don't know to the next generation. That's functionally insane. A few years ago, I was in the car with Formula One driver Mark Webber. We're just driving up the freeway to this corporate thing. And I've got to say, it's a bit intimidating having an F1 driver sitting there in the passenger seat watching everything you do like a hawk. It is. So we're talking about driving. He's a nice guy. And Webber says that aspiring race drivers often miss the point. He says they concentrate on the machine and not their own skill set. His basic point was that there's no point sticking different suspension or a bigger engine in your car unless you, the driver, can already exploit its peak performance at every point on a racetrack. And until you can do that, he says, just learn to drive better. And it makes you think. So a few years later, I'm setting up this slalom lane change, handbrake turn, gee whiz driving experience corporate thing where a whole bunch of girly lifestyle journalists ultimately get to go for a brief ride with Jensen Button. Not trying to drop names here, making a point. And I'm running Jensen Button through the course, which is also pretty intimidating. But I note there was a sharp intake of breath from the passenger seat at the end of the main straight, so pretty happy about that. Anyway, I ask him the same question, and Button says the same thing as Webber, right? Like the same hymn book. Be better drivers first and then upgrade the machines. This seems entirely rational to me. So when the chips are down and you've really got to stop, the key question is, can you milk the maximum braking performance out of your car? Can you miss that kid, that animal, that truck on the wrong side of the road, whatever? In a modern car, you've probably got the works burger of technology, ABS, brake assist, electronic brake force distribution, stability control, all of that. But do you know what to do? Because when it matters, it really matters. It's life and death, yours and or someone else's. So here's how to slash your stopping distance in 2 parts, prevention and cure. Prevention's better than cure, right? Better not to have to stop in an emergency in the first place. Prevention, step 1, look as far down the road as possible. You don't have to be Jensen Button or Mark Webber to do that. You just need eyes and about as much brain power as a canary. If you see a crisis unfolding way down there, a few hundred metres away, it's not a crisis. It's easy to deal with, so get more situationally aware. Don't forget the sides and the rear either, but as far in front as possible is critical. Dead simple to do. Sort everything out early and assume that all other road users are vindictive, suicidal idiots. Step 2, drop back from the car in front. The faster you go, the further you drop back. If he slams on the brakes, you have to be able to stop before the whole Liberace encounter thing. Step 3, drive at a speed that's appropriate to the conditions. And people say that all the time. It just rolls off the tongue. But what does it actually mean? You have to look at it like this. Let's say you're driving around a bend and there's a big rock wall next to you and you can't see that much road ahead. Happens all the time. So the car might be capable of doing 100 k's an hour around that bend. However, you might need 60 metres or more to stop the car in an emergency at that speed. So if you're doing whatever speed in whatever situation and you can't see enough road ahead to stop the car inside, you are driving too fast. Otherwise, you're just hoping for the best. That's what driving to the conditions means. And it's the same for urban environments. If you're driving through a linear shopping precinct on some arterial road, there's a lot of parked cars and everything's open for business, restaurants, shops, all of that. You have to acknowledge the risk that a pedestrian might just step out from behind a van, or some kid might dart out from behind a car, a pram could roll out onto the road. In quiet residential areas, kids play in the street. Idiots sometimes back out of driveways without looking. These risks are foreseeable. You have to accommodate all of that by driving to the conditions. Play a lot of what-if games in your head. The single most important thing to do is react early when you see something dodgy ahead. At this point, you might not know for certain if you've got to slam on the brakes, but if your spider sense is tingling, get off the gas and cover the brake. That's going to save you at least 1 second. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's 15 metres in the burbs and 30 metres out there on the highway. And you can avert a hell of a big tragedy in 15 or 30 metres. Nothing else you can do in the moment, no advanced driving trick will have this big an effect on stopping distance. I can't emphasise this enough. When it all goes horribly pear-shaped, you need that critical second. Do not blow this opportunity. Do not throw those 15 to 30 metres away. And then if all the warning bells go off and suddenly it's DEFCON 1, holy shit, Batman, got to stop the car, here's what you do. Now, I'm assuming you have a car with ABS brakes, at least. If you've got a really old car without ABS, I strongly advise you to get advanced driver training. Learn to use threshold braking, but I'm not going into that here. If you've got ABS and above in the braking hardware department on your particular car, this is what you do. Slam the brakes hard. I'm talking WrestleMania, Hulk Hogan versus Cockroach. Channel your inner Chuck Norris. And remember, sometimes the boogeyman can't sleep because he thinks Chuck Norris is hiding under the bed. Chuck Norris pees on a truck one day. That truck is now known as Optimus Prime. Chuck Norris jumps out of a plane. His parachute does not open. He takes it straight back and demands a full refund. Brake like Chuck Norris as hard as you can and wait for the scenery to stop. There's this especially evil relationship between speed, energy, and stopping distance. If you're doing 100, you've got 4 times as much energy compared with doing 50, and it takes 4 times as long to stop, plus reaction time. So at 50 k's an hour, You can stop a car in about 15 metres, that's 50 feet. But at 100, it's going to take more like 60 metres or 200 feet. Even worse, you wash off the last half of your speed in the last quarter of the stop. So you're still doing more than 50 for 3/4 of that stop from 100. It's pretty scary. That's why you've got to react early and channel Chuck Norris. Go 100% jihad on the brake pedal. You will not hurt it. Let's not forget, in this situation, you might actually crash. It's always better to have a slow crash. Sometimes you might even choose to crash. And this is something you have to decide in the moment. Maybe it's better to hit that kangaroo under full brakes than it is to swerve. Because if you swerve and lose control, run off the road, hit a tree, roll over, plunge into a river, whatever, this is likely to be much worse for you than hitting the kangaroo. If it's a kid or a B-double on the wrong side of the line, maybe swerving is still a pretty good idea, or at least a better idea as far as relative risk goes. Every situation's different, but if you can't stop in time, it's a call you've got to make in the moment. People often say if there's an afterwards, the car just wouldn't stop, or the car went out of control. Personal favourite. What a load of unmitigated bullshit. Cars never lose the ability to stop, and cars never just go out of control. It does not happen. Drivers don't react quickly enough. Drivers lose control all the time. If your hands are on that wheel, you are accountable. You have to wear the consequences. It's your fault if there's a bad outcome. If you swerve as little as possible. Look where you want the car to go. Do not fixate on the target. Look at the solution. If you look at that kangaroo, the B-double, the kid, whatever, you will hit it. Target fixation is hardwired into us by evolution because your ancient ancestors who failed to get missile lock on the threat, well, they ended up dead. So if the threat is a hungry wolf or a human with a pointy stick who wants your woman and your resources, missile lock is a very good idea, historically. Even today, perhaps. But if the threat is a kid standing there in the middle of the road, missile lock is a very bad idea. Don't look at the tree you might hit either. Look where you want that car to go. And hey, it doesn't even have to be life or death here. Why do you think it is that so many people hit potholes? It's because they're looking at them. Before I let you go, one more important thing. Check your tyre pressures every fortnight, minimum. Underinflated tyres do not grip the road especially well. And if the pressures are uneven, especially left to right, good luck with pulling up in a straight line. And the air is free, so there's really no excuse for being a lazy dick on this. Even slight underinflation has a dramatic negative effect on grip. If you care about this stuff, or even if you just care about the people you love, get advanced driver training. It saves lives and it prevents trauma. But unfortunately, there's no official tracking system for the tragedies that are ultimately prevented. If you're in Australia, I can thoroughly recommend Ian Luff, ianluff.com.au, and also Murcott's Driving Excellence, murcotts.edu.au. I'm not commercially affiliated with either business. They're just both really good at what they do, in my estimation. One final point, if you're getting into these critical situations often, that's a wake-up call. If your driving involves frequent slamming on the brakes, taking evasive action, you are doing something wrong. Do not blame this on the unpredictable behaviour of those idiots around you. Driving is about you maintaining adequate safety margins. If that's you, getting in these near misses over and over, wake up to yourself. You are the problem, not everyone else. Learn to manage risk better, and hey, you'll never need your inner Chuck Norris. Hit me up via the website if you want a new car at a discount in Australia, or go face to face with a car salesman on your own. As I understand it, there's a rather large portion of hell where that is all you ever do for eternity. If you have a young driver in your life, show them this report. Inflict me on them. They do that in hell too. I'm John Cadogan, and remember, Chuck Norris actually died 20 years ago. The reason he's still here is just that the Grim Reaper is yet to work up the courage to tell him. I hope this helps. Thanks for watching.